Today, we'll be talking about a very important topic that affects many job seekers. He is from LA County's Department of Consumer and Business Affairs, DCBA. I welcome to our program Ernesto Bobadilla.
Good morning, everyone. I hope everyone is doing well, and thank you for joining us throughout the presentation. Please submit your questions either through chat or Q&A. We will definitely do our best to respond as we go. If we're not able to respond during the presentation, I will stick around to answer all the questions at the end of the presentation. So give me a minute to go ahead and share my screen. While Oleg just checks the setting, let me go ahead and answer. There is one question by Sandra regarding how to verify companies are real and not a scam. So let's go ahead and address that question while we get up and running. So verifying a company is going to be a bit of a challenge. With anything comes due diligence. So first recommendation would be if it's a corporation, then as a corporation, what you would need to do is, if it's a corporation you're looking to potentially apply, what you're going to want to do is go to the Secretary of State, where the state was created. And so with California, of course, the California Secretary of State, there you can verify if they are a corporation in good standing, whether it's a C Corp, S Corp, LLC. You can see at least that they are in good standing, they are registered, they're active. Beyond that, it's hard to verify if they pay their employees, do they pay them on time? It's no different whether it's a gig job or a regular job. You may work for an employer who pays late, who doesn't properly do things. You may just need to do a little bit of Googling, a little bit of searching on the company to see if there are any reports out there that the company is or is not doing its due diligence. So that is the recommendation. Okay, it looks like everything's good. And let's go ahead and get started. Again, thank you so much for joining us. Oleg, LA County Library, thank you for having me. As Oleg mentioned, I'm with the Department of Consumer and Business Affairs. Sometimes we, unfortunately, are best kept secret. I'm going to go ahead and provide a little bit of information of what we do. So the Department of Consumer and Business Affairs has two sides. One is on the consumer side. So all of you are consumers. And as consumers, we provide consumer counseling. You have issues, you purchase something, you don't know what your rights are, warranty issues, contract issues, give us a call. We'll provide you guidance, direction, and connect you with organizations that can provide assistance to get you going. The next part is if we find that there is a company organization that is regularly doing illegal things, we will actually pursue legal action, partner with the local DA, and do a complete investigation. At times, we've been able to have some of these businesses' licenses revoked, closed, and actually take them to court and sue them to get refunds for consumers that were impacted because they were running not necessarily a scam, but they were doing things that were illegal in their practices. And then foreclosure prevention, if you're having issues, especially right now with COVID-19, if you own a home and you are behind in your payments, you're struggling, we do have a foreclosure prevention unit can provide you guidance on what to do, what's available, help you work with your bank to try and get things resolved. Additionally, on the business side, many of you might currently have a business. Now that you're looking to get into the gig economy potentially or already in it and trying to get more information, we have three areas where we provide service. Small business concierge, I oversee. And under the small business concierge, what we do is we help businesses figure out what they need to do to open their doors, connect them with the resources available. And if you have an established business and are looking to expand and grow, we can give you, again, direction, guidance of how to continue to grow and expand. If you ever want or consider getting into government contracting, many businesses do not think about getting into government contracting and providing services to government. Government buys everything. They spend billions and billions of dollars annually, and they have programs focused for small businesses. We have the LA County Certification Program, and what they do is they'll assist you to get certified with LA County as a local small business, woman-owned, minority-owned, veteran-owned, et cetera, to give you an edge and get those certifications to put you at the top of the list. And then the PTAC Center is going to help you by guiding you on how to get into government contracting, what to do, what websites to go, or to register at the federal, state, and local county, city level. So definitely something to keep in mind. Usually for government to get in, you need to be at least in business for 3 years. They want to know you're established, you know what you're doing, you're going to be able to handle potentially the increase in services or sales that they may be requiring through the contract. So usually it's that 3-year mark. So many of you, if you're barely starting out or you've been in business but less than 3 years, just keep that in the back of your mind as you approach that 3rd year if this is something you want to do. Additionally, for both consumers and small businesses, we provide mediation. You're having issues, problems, the contract's not properly met, and you can't come to middle ground before you go to court. We provide free mediation. If both parties are willing to come to the table and come to an agreement, it is legal and binding. If mediation doesn't work or both sides don't want to come to the table, we have small claims advisors who will help you prepare and get ready for small claims so you can go sue them in small claims court. As many of you may already know, there is a $10,000 limit. So if your lawsuit is above and beyond $10,000, just be aware that there's a $10,000 limit. So you may just have to, if it's $15,000, may have to forego the $5,000 and only sue for 10. 10 is better than nothing. So it's just something to keep in mind. Minimum wage, we do education, outreach, and enforcement in unincorporated Los Angeles County. For minimum wage, we ensure that employers are paying their employees properly on time, following the laws and regulations under the labor code. And then we provide assistance in the financial empowerment and do a lot of education, public outreach, just as this webinar that we've partnered up with LA County Library so we could bring you this valuable information. To learn more about our department and get more information, the 800 numbers at the bottom left corner and the website. I will provide the presentation to Oleg at the end, so he can definitely send it out or make it available to all attendees so that we have it as a reference. The top consumer complaint areas are landlord-tenant, retail sales, real estate, auto, identity theft, and debt collection. So those will be, those are some of the key areas. But again, anything consumer related, you're not sure, reach out to us. Let's see, there's a question. Is there a list of services the government hires small businesses for? I would recommend to just reach out to our Office of Small Business, to the 800 number, and they'll be able to talk to you about it. You can let them know what type of service or business they provide. Again, government buys everything and usually get services about everything from tech to landscaping, janitorial. They purchase cars, even helicopters, food, office supplies. You think about it, they're probably going to buy it or buy it, at least one of the governments, whether it's federal, state, or local. So call and you can definitely have that conversation. Just a little bit about myself. I have a bachelor's in math, a master's in public administration. I've been with the county just over 15 years now. Currently, I'm the business development manager, operations center manager for DCBA. And prior to coming to DCBA with the county, I did real estate appraisals for both residential and commercial properties up to $500 million worth. In the private sector, I did international sales for over 12 years. I lived abroad for 2 years and traveled through most of the Americas and Western Europe for business. And that's where a lot of the business background comes from, working with a lot of small businesses and the impacts and challenges, no different in other countries here. The regulations may vary, but the struggle and the challenges are the same. So just to give you a little quick overview, today we'll be talking about a little bit covering what the gig economy jobs are, the apps, a little bit of statistics background, give a little bit of pointers for small business owners as you look to get into gig economy, potentially start your own business. Just a quick overview of the pointers, and then I'll address all the permit licensing requirements. which may vary depending on the type of job you're looking to do in the gig economy. They may not all apply to you. However, it's good to be familiar or know the different topics. And then finally, resources. What resources are available for you for free to learn more, to expand and grow, depending on what you want to do with your gig job. So what is a gig economy job? So typically it's either going to be a part-time job with flexible hours and you're staffed as an independent contractor. Or if you're a freelancer, that's going to be a full-time job working for a major company, corporation, doing whatever service they contracted you for. And of course, the requirements can vary. Usually if you have your more part-time flexible type hours, the educational requirements may be lower. Or if it's more of a freelancer, you're doing very specific technical specialized degree or two may be required depending, again, the type of service or assistance you're providing. And definitely most of the jobs are going to require some type of smartphone, reliable internet, and meet age requirements. And of course, that just depends the type of job or work you're doing, whether the company provides it or if you have to provide it yourself as a gig worker. These are things to keep in mind. So how many workers are in the gig economy? So more than 1 in 4 engage in some type of gig work, whether it's their primary job to make a living, or if it's supplemental income. They're doing the gig job to make ends meet or earn a little bit more money to pay off debt, to travel, to do something else. More than 1 in 4 engage in this type of work. As a main job, it's 1 in 10. So 1 in 10 gig workers, that is their primary job. And then with regard to online platforms, of those in the gig economy, less than 1% are specific to an online platform, such as your Uber, your Lyft, your TaskRabbit, and other type of online platforms, just to kind of give you a little bit of an idea how many gig workers are out there. Now, okay, that doesn't sound right. Okay, it's supposed to be contingent. I apologize for the typo that threw me off. Workers by age. As you can see, the gig worker is a little more popular, or there's more in the younger age from 16 to 35. So during that age range, the gig worker outnumbers the traditional workforce. However, by the mid-late 30s through the 60s, that's when you have more traditional workers versus gig workers. And then once in the 60s or retirement area, it's fairly balanced. And again, this may change, with the continual surfacing of different methods of joining the gig economy. More people may be either using this as their primary source of income or just doing it as supplemental work, supplemental income. And so these stats may change. This was as of 2017, if I recall correctly. And then this just gives you across the US, the darker areas are the areas where you have a higher concentration of gig workers. The lighter, there's less gig workers. Definitely California, even though it's by the state, if we were able to zoom in the San Francisco northern area of California, of course, because of all the tech companies, they do use a lot of freelance workers to do work. So it would be very dark, very concentrated. It just kind of gives you a feel across the US how the gig workers are spread out and which states tend to have more than less. And then what type of jobs are being done through the gig economy? The biggest ones are in the business services, construction, education and health, and then finance, other services, retail, and then it continues going down. So as you can see, these are the key areas where you're going to find most of the gig workers, and this is again as of 2017 based on the Bureau of Labor Statistics. And for benefits, so this may be one reason some do not become a gig worker. Health insurance. Health insurance is very important for everyone, of course. So as a gig worker through the employer, only 8% of employers provide health insurance versus 53% of the traditional worker gets the insurance through their employer. So I apologize, I misspoke. So only 8% get their health insurance through the employer, or 53% of the traditional workers get it through the employer. 67% of the gig workers do not have insurance but don't get it through their employer, compared to 30% of a traditional worker have insurance but not through their employer. And then finally, 20%, 24% of the gig worker, 60% of the traditional worker do not have any type of health insurance. With regards to retirement plans, this is where it's really big impact. Through the employer, 0%, since you're a contract worker, an individual worker, depending on the type of job, freelance work, you may make a lot more money. And part of the catch is that when you work with an employer, you may get paid less as a full-time employee, but some of the benefits come in as insurance, retirement plans. So when you are working on your own, you may get paid more, but you need to make sure that part of that salary is being set aside towards your retirement, towards health insurance. But with regards to retirement plans, 100% do not get their retirement plan through their employer, where it's almost 50-50 when it comes to the traditional worker. 46% do get it through their employer, 50% do not. The state of California did pass a regulation recently called CalSavers, and if you Google CalSavers, it's their special retirement plan where employers are going to be required to provide their staff some level of retirement package or plan to start savings. And again, it's the CalSavers. Businesses with, I believe it's over 100 employees will be are required to provide it now. And then in the next 2-3 years, any business with 5 or less employees will be required to provide CalSavers through their business. So something to keep in mind, and something that you can look into for yourself to see if you're able to apply and take advantage to start saving for retirement. So what exactly in the gig economy, what are the jobs, apps, the sites, what's out there? So depending on the type of work you want to do, there's a large range. So I tried to cover the 4 key areas. I'm sure there's some that I may have overlooked or missed. So first you have the traditional driver delivery type of work, whether it's Uber, Lyft, IT related, Amazon Flex, which is a delivery for Amazon, Postmates, Instacart, etc. So one area of the economy are the driver delivery type of jobs. The next area is freelance jobs. Freelance jobs tend to be more in the manual or specialized labor. It could be anywhere from a freelance writer, a proofreader, going through sites as Fiverr, Fair Hire, even through websites, Angie's List, Home Advisor, Thumbtack, Hello Alfred. So it's very wide range on the freelance jobs depending on the type of work or specialized experience background you may have, whether from working or through education. There's a lot of freelance type of jobs where you can provide your manual or specialized labor, and those jobs may be short-term, maybe long-term, part-time, full-time. And then, of course, you have the rental space property, which has become very popular in recent years. Airbnb, of course, is the most known and well. You have Spacer, Turo, Getaround, which are apps that allows you to rent out your vehicle. You can be your own Hertz. Enterprise, you have RV Share. If you own an RV, you can rent it out, and so on. So that's where you're not actually doing the work, but you are participating in the gig economy because you're doing these little side jobs by renting out property or space to make income. And then finally, you have e-commerce online. And under e-commerce, you have 2 key areas, which is your either marketplace type place or web store. And some of the sites are Amazon, Etsy, eBay, Shopify. So these are the other area. And some of you may be considering to get into e-commerce, online selling, as a way to generate income. And of course, they can always start as e-commerce and eventually open up a brick and mortar on-site location. And that's something my office can assist and again, provide you guidance down the road. Under e-commerce, you have the drop shipping. So drop shipping is essentially you're selling a product. The moment you get a sale, the manufacturer drop ships it directly to the buyer. You don't have to carry inventory. Of course, you're not going to get make as much profit, but again, you don't have to buy the product in advance. If you buy too much product and have it sitting there around, that's money that's not being used. So even though you make less profit, the inventory, that higher investment, it's a good way to start out to see if e-commerce is for you. You can always do online videos to make money with ad revenue by showing people what to do, how to do it. If you have specialized skills or you just start entertaining, online videos is a way, or how-to videos. You have blogging. Again, through blogging, you're creating content online, engaging people, and that again gets you that ad revenue. You have affiliate marketing, which is you're driving traffic to e-commerce sites to make commissions. So if you, again, get people to come to you through your messaging, your blogging, your posting on your site, you can direct people to certain websites who then pay you a commission because by clicking on the link through your site, they know who referred them to you. And then finally, information product. And again, that's doing the interviews, the webinars, ebooks, and more. So a lot of it does a lot of information. And because we're going to cover a lot of information, it's hard to really get into a lot of time. Last month I did an online presentation where I went into detail between Amazon, Etsy, eBay, Shopify. I will provide the link towards the end where you can check, and I should be doing the presentation specifically on e-commerce in the next month. So go to the website, keep an eye, and then you can register. I think that would be easier, Tanya. Or I can circle back to the Amazon question at the end. So 7 reasons why to consider a gig job, especially if it's early in your career. So right now, especially college students graduating, high school students graduating, trying to figure out what to do, where to go, are they going to go on to college or not? What was very popular, definitely is very popular, is getting that gig job. It gives you marketing skills or marketable skills. You learn something new, you've done something different. You know, you have to deal with customer service, deal with other people. You have to work on your time, on your own time to get things done, time management. There's a lot of great skills that you start developing. So it's a good reason to get a gig job to build up those skills toward working towards a more permanent or a full-time gig job, depending on what your aim is. Customers come to you for many of these sites. You provide your service, you put your service out there, and your customers are coming to you. Of course, it's never that simple, right? Customers may come to you, but they're not be coming in the hundreds of thousands, right? You'll get one here, one there. You still have to do a little bit of work to make sure that people know who you are, where you are, and they are coming to you versus your competitor. There's a lot of competition. There's usually a low barrier to entry, you know, as you're trying to figure out what to do or what your next step is, or to get a little bit of supplemental income. A lot of these jobs or requirements are minimal. Many of them you can easily meet, and that might be one reason right now that you're looking to choose or use this to get you there. Let's see, you get to manage your own schedule. Oh, it can be extremely lucrative. Some of these jobs, actually, you can make some really good money, especially once it comes into the freelance tech area where you're doing either computer programming, testing, writing, reading. All these jobs can pay well. And again, it's on your own schedule, so things to consider. Plenty of options out there, plenty of companies. You can put yourself on various websites, various apps. As if any of you have done Uber or Lyft, you'll many times, or have taken Uber and Lyft, you will see many cars that have both the Uber and Lyft. Essentially, they are logged into both and trying to get that next ride, regardless of the site. So that gives you some of that those options. And you may end up in a really good company, even though you are a government, an independent contractor. You might end up at a good company that eventually may make you permanent, depending on the type of work you're doing. So 7 reasons to enter the gig economy if you're currently not in it, or to stay in it and continue to grow and expand. So as you look into getting to the gig economy, all of you are going to have different reasons as to why or what you'd like to do. So as you're doing it, there are certain elements that you need to keep in mind. Documentation. With your documentation, you need to definitely maintain records and need to figure out your income. Many of you, if you're doing it through an app-based contract work through a company, that's going to help out. They'll give you a 1099 at the end of the year that tells you how much they paid you. But some of these jobs may be cash related. Some of these jobs, they may not provide you that summary, and you need to make sure, you'll need to make sure to go ahead and keep track of your income so that you are paid properly. Well, you can keep track, sorry, for when you do your taxes at the end of the year, you need to report the proper income. Last thing you want is an audit. And of course, depending on the type of business or gig work you're doing, there will be deductions. You may have to pay for certain things. So as you are putting two things together, you want to keep track of anything is deductible, whether it's your canceled checks, receipts, other evidence for write-offs at the end of the year. So very important to understand and learn what you can or can't write off, what to do, how to do it. And of course, you want to retain your records. And usually here, when I do these presentations in person, I always like to ask for everybody to raise their hand if they know how long they may retain them or need to retain them. So I'm just going to go ahead and give you the answer. So normally, your documents should be kept for the current year plus 3 years. However, if the IRS decides to investigate you for fraud or perjury, they can go back as far as 6 years. Might as well keep them for 7 years, add that extra year. And it's very important. Make sure you keep everything documented, filed, and secure, because if they do come out and investigate you, and again, it doesn't mean you committed fraud or perjury, but if they decide to investigate you, you need to prove you've not committed fraud, perjury, and the only way to do it is through your documentation. Many times, small businesses or even gig workers tend to be a little bit more relaxed for either lack of knowledge, practice, and can get in trouble if there's ever that audit. So it's very important. Plus, documentation is not just important for the IRS, it's important for many other things. If down the road you're looking to apply for a loan, buy a car, something you need to prove income, you need this documentation. And of course, the IRS will take any type of record keeping, whether it's a notepad, Excel, or other. And at the end, I'll talk about resources that are available so that you can learn if you're not good at it with Excel, with bookkeeping, or just kind of keeping track. I'll cover this towards the end. And of course, record keeping is important, as I mentioned earlier. Loans, tracking profitability, depending on the type of job you're doing, tracking your expenses, because they're a write-off, and it's key to any successful business. Many times when I do the standard presentation for businesses looking to start a business, I always ask, do you want an expensive hobby, a gig, or a business? And of course, expensive hobby, nobody wants that, right? You're losing money. Now, in this case, because this is around the gig economy, when you're opening a business, you don't want a gig. A gig, of course, is going to be flexible. The hours are not going to be consistent. And so in this case, as a gig worker, you may be looking for that flexibility and inconsistent work because you might have another full-time job. You might be in school. There may be other reasons that may impact you from working your traditional 8 to 5 and gig work. But again, something to consider, depending as you work in the gig economy, learn skills and expand, some of those jobs can lead into starting your own business. If you're online business, you may want to go to a brick and mortar, make it more formal. So that's very important to keep in mind. You want a successful business. Even as a gig worker, you want to be successful, of course. One of the times we usually recommend is to open a business account. Now with business accounts, of course, it's this is I put optional because for a gig worker it's a little different. As a gig worker, you're actually working and that is your salary versus having a business where you want to keep your profits separate, and that's not your income. That is money, profits for your business from which you're going to pay your income. But again, depending on the type of gig work, it may make sense to open a business account. So definitely recommend you shop around for a business account, the best one, best price. You always want to avoid claiming any personal expenses, as business expenses, always keep them separate. As a gig worker, you may have that flexibility or ability to claim certain expenses. And if you are claiming certain expenses, you want to be, again, careful to keep it separate. I'm talking with an IRS agent. They were talking one time, there was a person who had their own business working from home. They had a home office, and they were expensing a weekly dinner every Thursday, same restaurant, same 2 meals. And the IRS agent, as they were telling me, they're chuckling, saying, well, you know, either they force their customers to eat the same meal every week, or it's not a business account. So the IRS will figure it out. So even as a gig worker, you may get some flexibility on writing off things. You need to make sure to be careful, keep things separate. Don't try and expense more than you should. And the three top expenses reviewed by the IRS, as a gig worker, many of you may be working from a home office. So they're going to scrutinize your deductions, your auto expenses. You know, if you're writing off the mileage, they're going to really pay close attention, and then any type of travel or entertainment expense. So you have to be very careful as a gig worker on what you write off. And again, don't intermingle personal and business expenses. Insurance, depending as a gig worker, some of you may require insurance, some of you may not. So if you are required to have insurance, you want to make sure you have the right insurance. If you're not sure, I definitely recommend to call around and check. So many times I'll ask if people know the difference between a broker and agent. I personally did not know the difference until a few years ago, once I started doing this type of job and doing more research to be better informed to provide the information. A broker is someone that is working for you. They will be able to provide insurance quotes from multiple businesses. So they may come back with insurance quotes from State Farm, Farmers Insurance, and Mercury. And they're going to provide you 3 different quotes explaining the differences, the cost, and then you choose which one. And they're going to make their money off the commission, off the sale of that insurance. An agent works for a specific. So if you go to State Farm specifically, not that I'm promoting State Farm, just they're the ones that came to mind. So if you go to State Farm, their agent will assist you and provide you a quote, a single quote, and that is it. They're not going to provide you multiple quotes. They're going to provide you what they think is best. So I always recommend call around, shop around, check with different agencies, get several quotes. If you don't want to hire a broker, you may just want to call 3 different companies and have the agents from each company provide you a quote, then you cross-reference each one to see what the differences are, the cost, and ask them questions. That's the best way to learn what the coverage means, what's covered, how it's covered, and then what levels of coverage you need. Do you need just property? Do you need liability or umbrella, motor vehicle, workers' compensation, employees' health, business interruption, et cetera, et cetera. So check, shop around, look around before you get the first quote. Definitely, you want to save money. And yes, someone asked if we'll be sharing the slides. Yes, we will make the slides available. So the type of business plan, depending on the type of gig job you're looking to do, this may or may not apply. But it's something to think about, especially if you're looking to online commerce. A business plan might come more in play, especially if you may be looking for an investor, looking for a loan, some type of funding. So, you know, just showing up with the dollar sign is not going to do it. Usually you have a more traditional plan that goes into more detail, more information, And a traditional plan is what most, if you're going more to a traditional business, online commerce, where you're looking for a loan from a bank or investor, you're going to want to do something more in depth, more detailed. If you have your own funding, if you're doing a basic online e-commerce where you're doing drop shipping, there's minimal money involved other than your laptop, internet, and you're shipping direct, and potentially a website that you're creating, then a lean startup plan. At the end of the day, the business plan basically is a roadmap of what you need to do to be successful and to make a profit. And again, for the gig worker, it may not apply to many of you, depending if you're doing the delivery driver, if you're doing freelance type work. This would be more focused to those who do the online e-commerce. And just continuing, again, depending on the work, it's always good to know if you do a plan, a business plan usually will cover sales potential, how big is the market that you can capture, customers' demographics, and again, because it doesn't apply to everyone, I'm just going to cover really quickly the key elements. Geographic location, where will you be located, especially if you're online commerce or any type of retail. Accessibility, how are your customers going to get to you? And then finally, zoning. Zoning is key, and that is basically every city has certain regulations of what you can or can't do on a property site. And I'll cover zoning again in a few slides when I get into the regulatory side of it. So if you ever are looking to lease a space, you want to make sure zoning is in place. And for business plan templates, if you Google, you're going to find a lot of excellent templates out there. Just looking around, shop around. At the end, I will cover resources that are available where you can get more information through I Go to the Library and some of the nonprofit organizations in LA County who provide business counseling and will actually help you work on your business plan. And then financial plan, of course, with any type of business, and depending on, again, the type of gig work you're going to be doing, there may be certain money you need to start and grow your business. You may need to do financial projections. If you do freelance work and you're in the IT area, what if you need stronger computers, faster internet, fiber, T1, because of the type of work that you're doing, these are things that you need to kind of plan as well. So even though you may not be going to a more traditional type job, you may not be, sorry, I lost my train of thought there for a second. There may be instances, again, that depending on the type of work you're doing, there may be need for you to figure out that you need to save up money. You're going to need to earn an amount of money as you grow in the type of work you're doing, whether you're doing manual labor, may start off as a handyman doing odd and end jobs that are limited to $500, but eventually you want to get your contracts license. You're doing the gig job just to make that extra money, get more experience, get more work, and then eventually you're going to get into contract, become a contractor. Then of course you need to save money. You need to project and figure out what you need, what tools you need as you expand and grow. Again, I'll use an example also of IT. If you need a stronger laptop, computer, better internet connection, faster, because of the type of jobs you are trying to get out there as a freelancer. Things to keep in mind. So you need to look at that financial plan. So again, the business plan may not apply, or you may not need to go into that much detail in every aspect, but there should be elements that are good for you to review and look at. Let's see, let me look. I did see a quick question. Okay. So yeah, I think at this point, let me get through the first half of the presentation. I'll scan through a few of the Q&A questions to answer them before I get into the regulatory side of it. So we're almost halfway through the presentation. Moving on, credit. So as a gig worker, you may need to, again, spend out of pocket. You're going to need to potentially buy a car if you're doing the delivery, because you may be required a car that is a certain age, certain type. If you're doing deliveries, you may need a van or rent one. And credit has a big impact with you. What you can or can't do may impact you long term. So you really need to understand and know your credit, because your business's credit is your credit. So you have the FICO score, which many of you should be familiar with your FICO score. And this gives you a little bit of range. 800 and above is exceptional. Of course, you want to be at least in the high 600s and above. If you're in the mid 700s and above, definitely that is where you want to aim for. And with your credit, it's good to understand how that score is tabulated. Here on the right side, as you can see, 35% of your score is based on your payment history, where the length of credit history is only 15%. So if you've had credit for 20 years, it's only going to count towards 50% of the score, where if you make 1, 2, 3 late payments, that's going to impact more than a third of your score because of payment history if you're late. So that's why it's always very important to always pay on time. And then, of course, how much you owe versus how much income you make. So again, by understanding what goes into that score, you can better manage and work on getting your score up and definitely improving it, because it's going to be very important depending on the type of gig work or business. It's not just knowing and managing your credit. One thing is to know your credit score. The second is to check your credit report. Usually when I do these presentations in person, I always ask how many people have checked their credit, their FICO score recently, and usually it's less than 50%, maybe 30% of attendees, and this is groups of anywhere from 30 to up to 100 people in attendance. And again, only about 30% have checked their credit and know their FICO score. Nowadays, most financial institutions, if you have a checking and savings account, if you have any type of loan, car loan, mortgage, through their website, you're actually able to see your FICO score for free now. In the past, a couple years ago, you actually had to pay, or when you applied for a new loan, they would make it available, but you'd have to request it in writing. Now, most of the time, institutions make it available for you. The next step is check your credit. And usually when I ask who's checked their credit recently, the report, it's about 10, 15% of attendees. So you always want to check your credit report, because if your FICO score goes down, you want to find out why. If you've not made a late payment, if you've not been applying for 20, 30 credit cards, if you haven't done anything to impact your score, then that should not impact your credit. And so by looking at your report, you can know what's going on with your report. And of course, as you know, good credit means higher loan availability, lower rate. So it's been maybe 30 years or so now that annualcreditreport.com website was created with the help of the federal government. And through this website, you're able to request one free credit report per year from each financial credit agency: Experian, Equifax, and TransUnion. So usually what we recommend is to go in, request one report earlier in the year, one in the mid-year, and one towards the end of the year. This will allow you to keep an eye on your credit report, what's being reported, was information incorrectly reported. Do you all of a sudden have a car loan or a mortgage loan that you did not apply for, because of identity theft? So it's almost the end of the year. You get 3 this year. I would recommend everyone to jump on, request all 3 reports. If you haven't done it recently, you can look at all 3, compare them, find out what the differences are, make sure everything's accurate. And then as of next year, then, do one at the beginning of the year, one mid-year, one end of year, so you can keep track of your credit. Very, very important. At the bottom, there is a link to our financial empowerment unit and a resource guide they have that talks a lot about credit and covers a lot more in-depth information regarding managing, knowing your credit. And they also cover the getting financially empowered. So this is very important. Whether you're looking at your gig job as your primary source of income, or especially to supplement your income, it's about putting a budget together and getting financially empowered for your future. So part of the putting your budget together is going to help you to make that plan to save for the future, protect your money, understand your credit, and maximize your money. And here's a little screenshot of the budget worksheet that is contained in the resource guide. Now, in this resource guide, it provides you information. The first section is what is your monthly income, all money coming in. You go ahead and add it up, put in the total. And as you can see, the very first item you should be setting money aside for is saving before you even cover your rent or mortgage, your rental insurance, internet utilities, before even food or transportation or health, is to save. And the reality is if you pay all your housing, food, transportation, health area, and you have money left over, that money may be used potentially to, well, right now we're not going to the movies, we're not going out as much and spending as much out and about, but traditionally, you use it for a weekend trip. You may go out for dinner, go out for drinks, buy wants versus needs. And by the end of the month, you have minimal money left over. You figure, I'll save next month, and I'll save next month, and you never start saving. So it's very important to really take the time to consider what is your budget and save on the front end, not on the back end, to ensure, because if you save at the front end and you pay all your necessary expenses and you don't have extra money to do a little weekend trip, it's more important to save for your future versus, or for a major expense versus that weekend trip. Find an alternate way to do something fun, enjoyable, versus spending it. So very important, definitely work on putting together a budget. And then I just want to bring to your attention, there are unaffordable and unsustainable loans. So this is predatory lending, and it's a vicious cycle. Interest rates can be as high as 94%, and then business owners who get these loans are paying twice as much than the money they're making. So do not fall for a predatory loan. Pay attention to what's going on. A lot of the predatory lenders, they're going to require you to make weekly payments instead of the traditional monthly payment that most loans or credit cards have you pay it once a month. Here, they're going to actually not only want to force you to pay it weekly, they're going to want it auto deducted week by week. They basically want to get the money ASAP. And the other part of it is I had a client, a customer who took out a $3,000 loan because they were struggling. They'd been robbed. Their business was broken into. And they had 109% interest on the loan. A year later, they owed more than they had taken out because, again, they were paying the minimum because the payment was so high they could not pay it down. So assisted them by connecting them with a resource to help them refi that loan, get them into a low interest loan, and be able to pay off that debt. So be very careful. Read everything. You cannot sign and then complain that, well, you weren't aware. You always read before you sign. Very, very important. And so before I get into the regulatory, let's go ahead and get through some of these quick questions. Let's see, if you buy a car that you use for a rideshare or gig work, can you write off the entire cost of the car? Additionally, can you write off the monthly insurance? That's a good question. That one, I would actually, since I'm not a CPA or a tax agent, there's a portion you'll be able to write off. What that amount is, I'm not 100% sure. The insurance is definitely a cost of the business, so it is an expense that you can write off. And one thing to keep in mind is if you do buy a car for work, you can, if you are going to try and write it off, you have to specifically only use it for work. If you're using it for personal use, you're going to get in trouble. So you have to be able to demonstrate or show to the IRS anything you write off, that if you are writing off the cost or expense of a vehicle, 100% that vehicle is only used, which means you have to have other vehicles that you use for your personal driving. And that is where many people get into trouble. So usually to do that, for those of you who are going to be doing any type of driving delivery with your personal vehicle, you want to keep track, a log of your mileage. So if you're going to be doing things for work, you keep a booklet in your car. There's apps, but they do charge you a monthly fee to subscribe to their service. A simple notebook will do it. And you just put in the date, the start mileage, the moment you're getting ready to leave to do work, and the ending mileage when you completed driving that vehicle for work. And then you just keep that tallying. At the end of the year, you figure out the total miles driven for work. And because you have the starting mile of the year and at the end of the year, then you can figure out how many miles total driven and how many of those were specific for work. If you don't keep this type of log, it's going to be very hard to write anything off, from insurance to gas expenses to anything else. Let's see. Are there specific websites that offer gig jobs? There are apps and websites, so it just depends what type of gig job you're looking for, whether you're a delivery driver, if you're looking for freelance work, from editing books, proofreading, to any type of technical type of work, computer, IT, security, anything else. You just have to do a little bit of searching to find the right app or job that offers the type of gig job you are looking for or that you qualify for. So now we get it to the fun stuff, all the regulatory permits, licensing. And for gig workers, it's going to vary a little bit. It's not going to be quite the same as if you're looking for more of a traditional business, brick and mortar. But I will cover a little bit of everything. So those of you who may be considering down the road opening up your own business, you kind of have some idea of what's required, and then you can always come back to us, to the Small Business to My Unit, to get further assistance. So for example, steps to starting your business, depending on, again, the type of work you're doing, you have a business structure, which I'll talk about, which is a little different for a gig worker versus a traditional business. The employer identification number, of course, choosing your location, what permits you need. Do you need any permits from the state because you're going to be selling, and then any business license or tax. So first, choosing your business structure. Are you a sole proprietor, LLC, partnership, C Corp, S Corp? So it boils down to what liability risks are you willing and able to tolerate. Normally you have your business, and as a gig worker, you are a business. As an individual, you'd be considered a sole proprietor, just by default. But I'll get into that in a little more detail in the next slide. But as a business, you are the business, and as a sole proprietor or partnership, you are exposed to all the business debt and judgment. You do something that is, you're found liable, something illegal, they sue you, they come after you, they can come after everything, not just your personal belongings, any accounts, anything you may have, they can come and try and take it all. So insurance is very important, of course. And the other thing is that if you become a legal entity, such as a corporation, an LLC, C Corp, S Corp, there are going to be some protection where it limits and separates your personal from the business. So if they sue you, they're suing the company, not you as an individual. Keep in mind, many lawsuits usually will include not just the company, but the person who caused the damage or did the illegal, what it may be. So if it's an employee, they're going to name the company and the employee. If you, as the owner, are the only employee, then of course they're going to name the company and name you. Or you as the president, CEO, whatever title you give yourself for your LLC, C Corp, S Corp, for your corporation, you're most likely the personal guarantor when you created the company. And so they can still come after you. There's more protections, but this is why the wall is, it's a dashed versus a solid line, because you may still be partly exposed, but not as much. But again, what makes sense, what doesn't make sense. So choosing a legal business structure. In the blue box, you have a sole proprietorship or sole proprietor and partnership. A sole proprietor is any individual essentially operating as themselves. So just if you operate under your name, then you already consider a sole proprietor. As a gig worker, you're out there doing jobs, whether you're doing work under Uber, Lyft, doing delivery, as a freelance, doing tech, proofreading, manual labor, if you're leasing a room, an apartment, a condo. Whatever you're doing, you as an individual are a sole proprietor by default, unless you go out and operate under a special name. You can operate it under a business name, but that has to be registered, and I'll cover that in a second. But as an individual operating under your own name, you're a sole proprietor by default. A partnership is when there's several of you coming together to run the business, to do the job. Let's say there's a group of you that may provide freelance work, and you work together and you work off each other to provide whatever services. Well, that is now a partnership, potentially if you're all working as owners versus as just giving each other the work. So it just depends how you structure it. And those are at the county level. Anything that is a corporation, such as a limited liability, professional business, limited liability corporation, C Corp, S Corp, cooperative, nonprofits, those are all corporations. So when you are a sole proprietor partnership, if you're a sole proprietor operating under a different name or a partnership, you must register your business name at the county. If any of these other titles, you're a corporation, and that would be registered at the state level. To register, it's about $100 if you're a sole proprietor partnership. If you're a corporation at the state, it's going to range between $100 and $2,000 plus. And the reason there's such wide range is because it's fairly inexpensive to file, but the paperwork is very complex when you're a corporation. You have to account for owners down the road as you hire employees, who can vote for what with changes to bylaws to the business. You know, do you need a board? Do you need X, Y, Z? So there's a lot of things you need to address, and it becomes very complex. So many times you have no choice but to hire an attorney to help you prepare the paperwork, and that's the only reason it gets more expensive. Otherwise, the paperwork, the filing itself is inexpensive. Circling and back to the sole proprietor. So if you, for all of you are operating under your name, you don't need to register your name, because the reason you register it is, which many of you may know it as a DBA. The correct term is fictitious business name, or the technical term is fictitious business name. If you're operating as your, no need to register. If you are going to operate under a name, you are a partnership, then you need to get your DBA, and for that you'll go to alleyvote.net. It's issued by the register recorder, county clerk. And again, it's about $100. It's $26 to file. $56 to run a state. You are now operating a fictitious name, and that do it for you. And again, if you are not required to register the name, but you are considered a sole proprietor. If you want to learn more about the different type of entity types or check with the state, I am including a link to the Secretary of State that provides a little bit more information of each of the different entity types you can register, apply for, whether it's at the county or the state level. Another thing to keep in consideration is that depending on what entity type you get, and earlier I mentioned it depends on the level of risk. And again, if you're doing basic coding, if you're doing freelance work, if you're doing things where the risk is low, you may just continue operating as a sole proprietor as an individual. If you're doing, Uber and Lyft, there's a lot of driving. If you're doing delivery, if you have the proper insurance and you're properly covered and you're not driving out there recklessly doing things illegally, again, the risk is low. You are protected. You're taking the proper steps. Now, if you decide you're a delivery person and you're driving down the street, zigzagging between incoming and ongoing traffic, you're running red lights, you're driving recklessly, then yeah, there's a high risk. Insurance isn't going to cover it. So again, it just depends on the risk. Many people like going to a corporation for higher protection. Keep in mind, if we look at this table, if you look halfway down the screen, you'll see $800 right where the cursor is. What that means is that if you form a corporation, the minimum tax you have to pay is $800 a year until you generate enough income where the tax is higher than $800, and then of course you pay the higher amount based on either 8.84% or 1.5%, depending on, again, that amount. So forming a corporation can be costly as a gig worker because you may be paying more taxes than needed. As a sole proprietor, the tax rate, depending on the type of work you're doing, income you're generating, will vary between 1 and 13%. So again, if you're low risk, sole proprietor might just be the way to go. You file your tax at the end of the year under Schedule C, and you're good to go. It's simple. If you do a corporation, there's a lot more involved. It's a lot more complex. So it's just good to understand the differences and other options if you decide to go in a different direction. Applying for your federal business tax ID. This is more for traditional businesses. It takes the place of your social security number, or the way you can see it is the EIN is the social security number of your business. Now, for sole proprietors, you're not required to have one because you're going to use your social security number. However, the moment you hire employees, let's say you, again, as a sole proprietor, you're doing contract work. Let's say you're in the IT field and you're doing programming and you need assistance, you need to hire someone to help you code, and you're actually hiring them versus you're not bringing them on board as an independent contractor, you're bringing them on board as an employee. That moment you hire that employee, you are now required to get an EIN. You can no longer use your social security number. If you are a partnership or a corporation, by law, you are required to get that EIN to use as your business tax ID number, since you are no longer allowed to use your social security. This is free to apply, and you apply with the IRS. So again, the EIN, your employer identification number, is only required if you hire employees or if your company ends up being a partnership or a corporation. As a sole proprietor, as an individual, you can just use your social security number. Next, as you do the work, it's very important to understand where your business is located. And usually your business is located where you live, because for the most part, as a gig worker, your home is your home office, your headquarters. Many times you know that you are truly in a city. However, for example, the city of Los Angeles is very long, very big. So many of you may or may not know, West Hollywood is a city. However, Hollywood is not a city. Hollywood is actually a community that is part of the city of Los Angeles. So if you live in Hollywood, you actually live in the city of Los Angeles. So very important where you live. Just because there's a community name attached to it, your address has that name, it does not necessarily mean you live in that city. It may be, again, part of another city, or you may be in unincorporated Los Angeles County. East Los Angeles. East Los Angeles is one of the largest unincorporated communities in Los Angeles County. It does not belong to any city, and therefore that is unincorporated. So if you live in East Los Angeles, you would get your permits and licenses differently than you would if you lived in Montebello, Downey, San Gabriel, Alhambra, and the neighboring cities around East Los Angeles, just as a reference. So by going to this link, selecting district map and look up an address, you can just verify if you're not sure. For example, on the left side, I used a West Covina address, and it is in the city of West Covina. However, on the right side, I use the La Puente address, and it's an unincorporated Avocado Heights. So this address is in unincorporated LA County, where the address on the left is in the city of West Covina. Very important to understand where you live or located. And sometimes, especially in unincorporated areas, there's a confusion because your address is always based on the zip code, and the zip code ties it to a city name, even if you're in unincorporated. It won't say Avocado Heights. If you put Avocado Heights as the address, the post office may get confused. For the most part, you're going to be using La Puente and that zip code. So just as a point of reference. The next item is the California Department of Tax and Fee Administration. So if any of you are going to be doing any type of sale in Los Angeles County to anyone in California, you are required by the state of California to have a seller's permit. So any type of retail, you need a seller's permit. The seller's permit, essentially what it allows you is, one, you're required to collect sales tax from your client and pay it to the state. And secondly, as a retailer with a seller's permit, if you're buying products that you're going to resell, you can avoid paying the sales tax because you're not the end user. You're buying products to turn around and sell it. So seller's permit is more specifically around retail. So if any of you are looking to do any type of retail business as part of the gig economy to sell, you may need a seller's permit. Something many of you may not know is that the state of California, if you do yard sales, by the state of California, you're allowed to only do 3 yard sales a year. If you do more than 3 yard sales, by law, you are required a seller's permit and should be collecting sales tax on the items you're selling and paying the state. Now, are they going to find out you're doing more than 3 yard sales a year? It may be a little difficult for them to find out, but if they find out, they may come knocking at your door. So just heads up. Many cities limit the number of yard sales per year because of this regulation. Sometimes they just limit it to once a month on a certain date. And again, so it's just good to know, FYI. For those of you looking to get into online sales, and if you plan to sell through Amazon, eBay, Etsy, Walmart, online, effective October 1st, 2019, California passed a law requiring marketplaces to collect and pay the sales tax. So essentially, if you're selling on Amazon, you do not need a seller's permit because Amazon will actually collect the sales tax in your behalf and pay the state and then just send you the difference. So depending on the site, you may want to check to verify if you're selling online, are they a marketplace? And if they're a marketplace, are they abiding by this law and collecting the sales tax for you? If you do a website where you're selling, then you will be required to have a seller's permit. Just keep that in mind. Now, what permits and licenses do you need at the county and city level? Okay, duplicate slide. Let's go ahead and move on. So planning department. Earlier, I talked about zoning. So the planning department in every city, and for unincorporated LA County, if you will be doing any type of work where you're going to be at a physical location, you need to check with the planning department to make sure that the space you leased can be used as you intend to use it. Now, if you rent a space that is an office space and you want to use it for retail, even if the landlord says that's perfectly fine, you still need to check with the local jurisdictional agency, whether it's a city or an incorporated LA County, to find out if you can convert the office space to retail or to a restaurant or however you plan to use the space. They will issue conditional permits as well if it's a space that traditionally would not be allowed to be used the way you want to use it. They will be able to provide you a conditional permit saying, as long as you follow these regulations, we will allow you to use it in this fashion. If you violate any regulation, then you will lose your permit. One perfect example is many businesses that have a liquor license or sell liquor usually get a conditional use permit because they want to make sure that if maybe the business is selling to minors or doing something illegal or selling when they shouldn't, they can immediately revoke the license and have a direct impact and shut down the business. Or if a business is next to a residential area, they are not allowed to have deliveries, let's say before 7 in the morning, so it doesn't impact the local resident. So just that's what the conditional use permit is. And then anything related to zoning. For gig, in the gig economy, gig workers, this may not impact most of you, but good to know. And again, if you are looking to sign a lease agreement, any type of rental agreement, do not sign it until you verify that that location can be used for the intention you plan to use it for. Do not sign anything until you verify. The landlord may allow it, the city may not. Building and safety, again, for the gig economy workers, this fully won't impact you, but it's good to know. If you're going to do any type of construction work in any space that you may lease, new construction, if you're adding, remodeling, you may need to get a construction permit from building and safety. They're just going to ensure that everything's built to code and meets local planning requirements. Again, you go to the city for local government, unincorporated for LA County. Public health department, environmental health. If you are looking to do a tattoo parlor, you're going to be doing any type of tattoo work, public health gets involved. If you are doing any type of garments, if you have a garment business where you're being hired on to you and maybe you have some employees who are creating garments, clothing in the clothing industry, public health is involved and they have to do checks. Any type of camps, organized camps, food related, you have to reach out to public health. Now for public health, it's a little different. And I need to remove those two notes at the bottom on the previous page. So they enforce state regulation. And if you're in Long Beach and Pasadena or Vernon, they have their own local public health department. Otherwise, anywhere else in LA County, you actually go to LA County's public health department. They cover the rest of the county with the exception, again, of Long Beach, Pasadena, and Vernon. If you live in one of those locations, depending on the type of business you're doing, you will have to check with them if you're doing business from home. Something else to keep in mind, if you're looking to get into the cottage food operation where you're making certain foods at home to package and ship, cookies, breads, things that are non-perishable that you can ship, not only do you need to deal with LA County, and here's a link to learn more about their cottage food operation and their permit, here's the information from the state. And the moment as a gig worker, let's say you're making baked goods, if you personally drive and deliver them, you don't have to worry or deal with additional issues or with the state. However, if you plan to ship them through a third party, FedEx, UPS, someone else, then you do have to check in with the state. There are stricter requirements when you ship third party, so something to keep in mind. Business licenses. Depending on the type of gig work you do, you may or may not need a business license. If you're doing any type of food, online sales, the city may require it. As an individual worker doing manual labor, they may or may not. The best bet is you're just going to have to check with your local city government to find out if you are required to have a business license. Essentially, it's a business tax. It'll be taxed based on the income, and each city varies on what type of business must or must not have a business license. And for unincorporated LA County, the treasurer tax collector handles the business licenses. Rule of thumb is most cities are going to require you to have a business license, where unincorporated most likely will not. It just depends. And the biggest difference is With unincorporated, it's a regulatory, where in the city, it's a tax. And for unincorporated, the tax collector also does Malibu, Santa Clarita, and Westlake Village. They're contract cities who have contracted the county. And as I mentioned, it's regulation-based, so only businesses that impact the health, the safety, welfare. So if it's food-related, you're required a license. If it's standard retail, you're not required a business license with unincorporated. Keep in mind when you apply for a license, they're going to ask you for certain things such as your DBA or your fictitious business name, a seller's permit, a copy of your ID, your social security number, articles of incorporation if you're a corporation, work history. So just keep in mind before you go to apply for a business license, give the local jurisdiction a call to find out if you're required a business license, and if you are, what the requirements are to file and apply. And then we're almost at the end. With regards to right now opening any type of business, many of you as a gig worker may impact you depending on the type of work. As you know, right now we all have to be safe, we have to be careful with social distancing. As a gig worker, you may be coming in close proximity with your customers. The LA County, based on state regulations, has protocols that need to be followed based on industry. And those protocols are going to provide information for what the workplace policy is and practices for the employees to stay healthy. If you are a gig worker, a sole proprietor, you're by yourself, this one won't apply much for you, but definitely ensuring physical distancing when possible. If you're an Uber driver, you can't distance, but you're going to have to put in procedures to ensure infection mitigation. If you're a gig, what's it called, an Uber Lyft driver, you might be installing a barrier between you and your customer, requiring both of you to wear masks, certain things after each pickup. And I'm sure Uber Lyft also provides their guidelines of what you must do. But again, this is something where, depending on the type of job you're doing, there are these regulations. And then, of course, you want to communicate the information to, in this case, I'll keep going back to Uber Lyft because it's just the easiest example is to communicate when they jump in the car to get a ride, to let them know, you must wear your mask, you must do X, Y, Z, whatever those requirements are. And it's just communicating. So to learn more how in your industry you may be impacted or what the regulations are you must follow, you can go to the website down here. And once you go to the website, you can look up the industry to learn more. Usually it's a 6 to 10, 12-page document that goes into a lot of detail. Some, again, may apply, some may not. And with that, let's go through the next 4 or 5 slides quickly, which are the resources, and then I'll circle back to answering any additional questions. Again, thank you all for your time. I know we're coming close to the 12:30 end time, but I am more than happy to stay longer to continue answering any of your Q&A. I'll try and address the more general questions first, and then I can answer more specific ones the best I can. So for resources as a gig worker, as you're looking to grow and expand and what to do, there's a lot of great online resources, online college courses, and there's mentors, counselors out there that may help you within the type of gig work you want to do to grow and expand. First is LA County Library, who we've partnered with today to bring you these resources. So if you got their email, you may be fully aware of all the services they provide. You may not be aware of their business resources potentially. So let me just quickly cover, and definitely, Ola can provide any additional information, or your local library you can reach out to get more assistance on the phone. Their website is very valuable. So Oleg just put in the business resource link, and definitely if you don't have an LA County library card, you can apply for those online, get your card, get your PIN, so you can access everything. They have some amazing databases, so if you're looking to create your own business or expand, they have business insights that provides a lot of great information on company profiles, history, and what the industry is doing, what's new, what's upcoming. They have the legal resource page, the NOLA books, which are amazing. With the NOLA books, if one of you is tempted to do your own corporation, your LLC, C Corp, S Corp, they have the NOLA books that will actually walk you through how to fill out, file the paperwork, and what to do. Really great. And then Reference USA, which is now called Data Actual Reference Studios, it's a way to do research. So again, if you're looking, let's say, to open up down the road a business, a restaurant, you can, let's say, a pizza parlor. If you're looking to look up a pizza parlor in Downey, you can go in there, say, food industry, pizza, the city of Downey. It's going to give you a list of every pizza parlor in that city. And if there's 50 pizza parlors in Downey, I know there's not. But if there is, and do they really need a 51st pizza parlor? You may want to go look at another city, another location. It's a great way to do research. It's all free. Take advantage, amazing resources. And then for online classes, they have lynda.com, which is part of LinkedIn, Gale Courses, Universal Courses. And here is where you can go learn more about marketing, bookkeeping, Excel to keep your bookkeeping or keep track of your expenses. There's a lot of great, not just professional, but personal development classes about everything, including even learning how to do marketing. Someone earlier talked about a dog walking business. I don't recall if it's Gale or Universal has classes on how to start your own pit sitting job, if I remember correctly. And again, these are classes, workshops, whether they're on demand where you watch them at your pace or you log in every week. Again, reach out to your local library. They will give you the information. Follow them, go to the website. I'll put the links on the website. Take advantage. They have amazing resources for you, and they're free. Many times you only focus on the individual resources. They have amazing business resources as well. Legal assistance. There's an organization we partner and work with regularly called Bedzedek. They provide business legal advice assistance. They will not represent you at court, but they will help you with transactional. If you're looking to, again, form your own entity, corporation, LLC, if you're having real estate issues, leases, intellectual property, employment law, contracts, license and permits, they will provide you all this assistance for free if you qualify. There are some financial eligibility factors. Definitely take advantage, reach out to them, let them know we sent you. If you go to their website, they will go ahead and when you fill out the intake form requesting their assistance, there is a checkbox saying who referred you, check us off, please take advantage of the free legal assistance. Next, we have SCORE. SCORE is a nonprofit organization established by the federal government, and you have volunteers. They do not get paid, and these are volunteers who have over 20, 30 years of business experience, either as entrepreneurs who ran their own companies, their own businesses, or ran major companies, corporations, and they can definitely provide you that business savvy and give you that assistance, that mentoring. So even as a gig worker, as you're looking to expand and grow, depending on the type of work you're doing, reach out to a mentor, bounce your ideas. They will provide you assistance, guidance, and they provide a lot of great workshops. And then for those of you looking to maybe get into the online business, they do have 2 great workshops available, and then you can go to their website to learn about what upcoming workshops you can take from them to learn more. And then we also have the Small Business Development Center. The difference between SBDC and SCORE is SCORE are volunteers that have business experience. SBDC are business counselors who will counsel you. They know the know-how and can give you, again, that guidance, assistance, especially with your business plan. Both will help you with a business plan or anything else. SBDC also provides a large number of workshops. Visit their site, learn more. And finally, we do provide monthly workshops. We partner with Bedzedek. The workshop tomorrow is on top legal issues for small businesses. So if you have time, I believe it's in the morning, jump on, log in, register. And if you go to this website link, you will see at the beginning of every month, we will add additional workshops. So For those of you interested in online vending, I should be adding a workshop specific to online businesses, and then a generic workshop for general businesses. If any of you are interested to sign up for our future workshops, please just keep an eye on that website, check back regularly. And that brings us to the end. Again, thank you, everyone. I will stick around. We'll start answering questions. If you want to send us an email with additional questions, if we didn't address it today, you can't stay on longer, send the email to concierge@dcba.lacounty.gov, and we'll be able to continue providing assistance, guidance, answering questions long after this presentation.
All right. Thank you all for being with us and stay safe. I hope you have a very pleasant afternoon.